I was muted. Hello, everybody. I'm happy that you're joining us today. Welcome to Talking Points Office Hours Live. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Central, and we talk about everything Talking Points, everything family engagement. I'm Paige, and I'm happy that you're here with us, whether you're watching live or after the fact on a recording. So today, our topic is going to be analytics and documentation. So I am excited to talk about that, and hopefully you are too. I know that every teacher has been told at one point or another, make sure you document everything so that you just have everything where it needs to be. You can answer every question that is asked by anyone, whether that is a family member that comes in, an admin, or anyone in an IEP meeting, a 504 meeting, an S team, whatever that may be, because teachers, we have a million different things going on at any moment. And yeah, documentation tends to be the answer. So yeah, I would love for us to talk about how talking points can support documentation and all of that in support of student outcomes. So that's going to be our focus for today. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pull up, I think I had translation up there, but we're talking about documentation. It's been kind of a day. Halloween's coming up, so maybe something spooky was going on. Who knows? So here we go, talking about documentation. The first thing, obviously, when we're talking about documentation and talking points is going to be those conversations that you're having with families. You're having with them via text message. The first question that we get from teachers is, how do I save them? How do I print them? Do they go away? Like, how do I do that? And so the first answer is yes, you can save them. You can print them. They are yours. We don't make them disappear. You can bring them up. You can pull them up on the web platform. For those of you who don't realize it, you may have been using talking points on your computer this whole time and not realize that it's accessible on your mobile phone. Some of you vice versa might have been using it on your phone this whole time and not realize you can access it on your computer. So you have access to those conversations pretty much at all times. But if you are accessing your account on the web, you can go into your account. I'm going to pull this up right now, actually. You can go into a conversation. Up in the right-hand corner, let me move our logo out of the way. Be gone. Okay, so you'll click into the conversation that you want to see. And if you need to have them saved somewhere on your computer or even printed, maybe your administrator requires a binder of conversations or something like that, you need it tucked away somewhere physically, then you can go to those three dots up in the corner, click that, and it says download conversation. That will allow you to, let me click over. Yes, to download a PDF, and it even allows you to decide like what dates between which you had the conversation. So you don't have to print the entire conversation for the whole year. You could just say, well, the issue that I'd like for us to have documentation of was really only going on through the month of February. I'm going to print the conversation for that amount of time, or whatever it is, or you can print the entire conversation and it'll be a PDF format, which should be easy enough to save and print off anywhere that you are. So and if there are videos, there are pictures in your conversation, it'll denote that on the document as well. So we want you to be able to access those conversations whether you're online or you have to have it in physical format for your administrators or whomever asks for those. And let's see, saving and printing. That was the first thing. Then I'm going to remove that for just a quick sec. Another way that Talking Points really helps teachers take note of not just documentation, but really keeping track of students' uh, progress and their own progress as far as communicating with families and knowing their own engagement with families, is the analytics dashboard, which is a part of every Talking Points for Teachers account. And if you are in a Talking Points for School or District account, then administrators also have analytics dashboards that are even more robust. So those are amazing for us to be able to view. So let's take a look at those. We'll talk about how those can really help you. So at first, and this is a teacher's dashboard that we're looking at here. And if you are an administrator, take a look at yours as well, because it has even more information on it. But we're going to focus on the teacher's view today. So when looking at documentation, when getting asked questions about like, who are you communicating with the most? Who should you communicate with more? Are you sending more announcements or more direct messages? All of those answers are right within your account, very easy to access. So just hop onto your account on the web, talkingpts.org, log right in. And on the left-hand side of your dashboard, you'll see analytics. You can show it by date range or by the entire year. You can look at daily or weekly analytics. You'll see how many direct messages you've sent, announcements, the families that you've reached, the students that you've reached, and then here it'll show announcements versus direct messages. So you can kind of compare, okay, this week or this month, I was really talking to the whole class a lot more than I was talking individually to families. And that way you can set goals for yourself. You can set goals for the following month. You can just kind of reflect. I know that when I was teaching, when I was in the classroom, a lot of my teaching practice was just a lot of reflection, not necessarily to critique myself, but just to know, okay, to inform my upcoming instruction or family engagement is just knowing what I've done before. And is it effective? Maybe not. Let's mix it up. Let's try something a little bit different. Or, hey, that seemed to really work when I was doing a lot of direct messaging with families. Let's keep doing that. Or these announcements seem to be connecting really well. I'm going to keep that up. So this analytics dashboard is very, very helpful. And you also will be able to see a further breakdown of some of these other stats. It'll tell you your total number of families and students and contacts in your account currently. So as a reminder, contacts are individual family members assigned to students. So that's what that number indicates. And then you'll be able to see the breakdown of languages that are represented in your rosters on Talking Points. I'm always fascinated to see those percentages and just how it's incredibly translating those messages, especially when you're sending announcements, just clicking through once and then it's going to all of those families in their preferred languages. And that's an incredible thing to have documentation of when you do have to prove the equitable family engagement that you are doing on the daily. You'll also, if you've been marking your students as EL or non-EL, it breaks that down as well in your analytics dashboard. Each of these individually, you'll see that you can download the image of the graphic so that you can have that physically documented in your special binder, your folder that you have to turn in. This one, valid phone numbers, that is one that I would honestly recommend checking on periodically, not to help anyone else, but to help yourself. Because if you have even one contact whose number turns invalid, which could happen for a myriad of reasons. Say they weren't able to pay their phone bill that week or month, if they move, or if, for whatever reason, immediately that you are no longer in contact with them. You can talk to them at pickup, get a new phone number, or find out another way to stay in contact with them. And Talking Points is getting that information to you quickly so that there's not a long period of time where you're not connecting with a family. So that part of the analytics dashboard, I think, is one of the most important parts for teachers to be able to kind of keep an eye on. And then you can also see subscription status to see which families have opted out or are staying in their Talking Points account. We do notice that families tend to stay in there and like to receive their messages, like to stay informed. And then just knowing who's using the app and who's using text message. So there's a lot of information in your analytics dashboard that can help you, can inform your communication, and can just be very helpful for bringing to meetings and providing for your administration, proving that you are pulling out all the stops, that you're doing family engagement fully every day, every week, the way that it's meant to be. So that's kind of the very specific ways that Talking Points, the tool, helps you and gives you the tools, I guess, for lack of better words, to document things. The strategies, then, using those tools, what then we need to think about is, how do I use those tools within this solution to identify patterns and then elevate needs of students to administrators, to other adults in the building who can help me with the needs of my students. So having the documentation of conversations that have gone on with family members, having the documentation of how often I've been in communication with a certain family, all of these things that I can frequently pull up or frequently go back to, those are going to be so helpful for me when I realize, oh, I'm seeing a pattern with absences with, let's say, Amy. Amy's absent every single Wednesday. And I noticed that because I've had her mom message me. I have all my families message me on Talking Points when their students absent for their excuses. So I've got the documentation on Talking Points, and I see that pattern because it's there and I have the documentation. So then I can identify those patterns and kind of elevate that to the proper person in the school who can help me find the proper supports for that family. Or if the family asks for support in a certain way, that's documented there in Talking Points that I've been asked for support for them. So having that communication in a documented way, seeing patterns either in communication, in absenteeism, in grades, if you're communicating about grades, whatever it is that you're able to see through the use of this communication tool, then you can use that in supporting students, supporting families to support the students as a team. And that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to be a solution, a tool, so that all the experts, all the stakeholders in partnership can help students get where they need to be. So just looking for patterns all the time. Already mentioned kind of coming prepared to meetings. So I feel like that's kind of a gimme. I know that we as teachers are always in meetings, whatever kind of meeting it may be. So if there are any questions or ideas, creative ideas that you can think of, or maybe ways that you've used your Talking Points documentation or messaging, I know that this may not actually be documentation, but communication. I do know that there are lots of teachers who use Talking Points to remind families about when their meetings are, and to get them there rather than the phone calls rather than sending notes home. I know that getting them to the IEP meetings and things like that, that is, Talking Points tends to be a really helpful tool for getting them to the meetings, and then pulling up those conversations that they've had with them on Talking Points is a very helpful tool. So it's been helpful in multiple ways as far as like an IEP meeting, an ST meeting goes. I've used Talking Points to get them here, and then I've pulled up the conversations to show that we've worked together in a million ways, so that now we've got the S team going. We've talked about all the issues that we're having, or all of the partnership that we've had in order to work towards getting the student where we need to be. And now we can create a formal plan. That's the idea, is use the tool towards the success of the student. So everybody likes a freebie. I would like to share with you, or we, Talking Points, would like to share with you a little freebie that we have. We have a conference collaboration worksheet and guide that we created recently, based on the research that our in-house research team did last year. In our impact study 2022, Dr. Rena Park did an impact study, and we looked at what teachers said they wanted to hear from families, and what families said they wanted to hear from teachers. And and then we took that information and we compiled it into, okay, then once they're together, how could we form that into a really collaborative, really effective conference? What would that look like? And we created a little guide for that. And then to take it further, how could a teacher and a family together document that, so that when they come together next time and the time after that, and then the teacher needs to turn in that documentation, that it's there for them, and that it is really put together, and they can check in on their goals and things like that. So I have, and I'm putting it in the chat now, the link for you to download this freebie. It is, let me grab the link. I promise I'm putting it there. So it's two freebies, actually. It's the guide that you'll really only need one of, that tells you what the teacher portion of a collaborative conference could look like. And this is research-based. The teacher portion, the family-led portion, and then the collaborative portion at the end. And then to go along with it is the worksheet, which would actually be your documentation that you could keep to then show that you've set goals at this initial meeting, and then how to document on the back every follow-up meeting after that. So it is related to Talking Points. Your follow-up meetings could be messaged on Talking Points. It could be had a phone call. It could be talked to in the car rider line. But we really wanted to provide you with something that's research-based, allows you to have documentation of your family engagement beyond just your conversations through Talking Points. And yeah, just help you with any element of family engagement that we can. So grab that through that link that I provided, and we will hop over to FAQ time. Let me look at, well, if you have questions about how Talking Points can help you with documentation, about your account, anything that you've been trying to do through Talking Points, or any questions at all, throw them in the chat and I will help you out. I also have some questions that our support team has tossed my way, so I can share those with you. You may have similar questions. So first, this is related to documenting conversations. It says, how long do conversations stay in my account? And that's, I think I mentioned it earlier, that is a question that we've gotten a few times before. And that question, it depends on your type of account, but the general answer is they stay until you do something with them. We don't remove your conversations, but at the end of a school year, at the end of a school year, if you are in an account with your school district that your school district or school pays for, they might archive your conversations. You might archive your conversations and then find them in your archives. But we're not going to remove them. So you can find those. Like I said, you can document them by saving them as PDFs. You can print them. So check on those. At the end of the year is when I recommend printing them. I do see a comment by Lisa. She says, I have asked my parents how they prefer getting a message, and they always prefer phone rather than email. Also, the app is for all classes, English or Spanish or whatever. I totally agree. We do have a lot of people who kind of, a common misconception is that Talking Points is only for ESL or multilingual families. And I understand that misconception because our translation is enhanced and it does help communication with those families so much. But the idea is that what you're sending out should go to all families the same way, and they should all get the same message. So that includes English speaking families. And all families have cell phones, and what we see generally, like Lisa's saying, is that people don't check emails as much anymore. I know I delete a lot of emails every single day. I get a lot of emails that I don't want to read or I don't know who they're from. And it's just like, skip that, skip that, skip that. Whereas my phone is always on me. It is easy to check. And if I know this is from my child's teacher and it's coming directly to my phone, then I'm going to read that. So yeah, Lisa, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I have another question that says, can any other teachers or admin see the conversations in my account? That is a good question. So again, that sort of depends on what kind of account you have. So if you are using the free Talking Points for Teachers account that you signed up for yourself, then no, nobody else can see your conversations unless you share your class with a co-teacher. I'm going to put the link to an article that shows how to do that. You can share with a co-teacher. I'm going to show how to do that. Let's see, share my screen. This can be helpful if, say, you have students who are pulled out by an EL teacher, or maybe there's just another teacher who has a few students that they need to speak with the families of. So let's say my social studies class, I would like to share with another teacher. So what I would do is go up to the three dots in the corner and click Share Class. And then I would just type their full name and put their email in. You get the gist. And send it to them. They're going to get an email saying that I've shared my class with them. And then they will also see my class pop up on the side of their account with a little flag next to it so that they can message those students, and we will be sharing that class. I will still own that class, but they can reach out to those families, and they can switch, they can toggle to view my conversations so we don't send out the same messages, but we can share. We can be co-teachers. Feel free to put comments and questions in the chat. That's what we're here for. Very happy to have you here today. And if you're curious about the schools and districts accounts that I keep mentioning, I'm putting a link in the chat as well to our schools page right here. because if you love your free account and you would like your admin to know about it, this is the link you would send them. Your if you would like them to know about it, then this is where they would go to learn more. In those accounts, they can see they can see kind of an overview of the school. They can see much more in-depth analytics, what I was showing earlier, so that you all can kind of look in deeper at those conversations that families and students are having, and like who's engaging the most, family wise and student wise, and really dig deeper. I see a question. If I add a co-teacher, can I remove myself without closing the class? Yes, that's a great question. You can use that co-teacher access to transfer the ownership of the class. So we've actually added, instead of using the co-teacher access, actually there's a button here that says transfer ownership. So we've had a lot of teachers, whether they are retiring or going on maternity leave, whatever the issue is, instead of using co-teacher ownership to do that, they would just transfer ownership. They would use that to send it to another teacher. So I think you would add the co-teacher first and then transfer ownership to them. Yes, great question. And then I see another question about accessing the same information on my phone account as I can on my computer. And I did mention that you can access Talking Points on both your mobile phone and the computer. Whether you have an Android or an iPhone, the app is available on both. There's just a few things that are different. I would say adding students. If you're doing a lot of students, I would do that on the web. It's a bit easier. And then the videos with translated captions, that's only available on the computer. I'm sorry, on the phone. But otherwise, I might be forgetting some things, but otherwise, they are primarily the same experience. And you can just bounce back and forth. Like, I'm going to do call writer line. I'm going to take my phone out, make sure I have it with me. Or I'm teaching class. I'm going to have my browser open on my computer in case I get a message. It's great to have both options. And then families have both as well. Actually, they have three options. They have the web, they have mobile app, and they have text message option. And we're about to run out of time, so I want to share your challenge for the week real quickly. Because we're talking about analytics and documentation this week, I would love to challenge you in your Talking Points account to comb through your messages and your analytics dashboard and kind of take notes of any patterns. Do you see any specific student needs? Do you see anything about attendance maybe? Now that back to school season is over, what kind of patterns are you noticing that you can utilize Talking Points to elevate those needs and focus on them and put support towards them? So maybe take a few minutes after school one day and kind of sift through and see if there's anything that stands out. That's your challenge this time. It's not a messaging challenge necessarily, but it could lead to some messages, some connections. So that's your challenge this week. If you have any other comments or questions, throw them in the chat. I am very, very happy that you joined us today. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday tomorrow, and join us again next Thursday, same time, 4:30 p.m. Central every Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for Talking Points Office Hours Live. We'll see you guys again next week. And I hope, like I said, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys.